Hello, my name is Nell and I have things to say. I've been using mobility aids and mobility equipment for quite a long time. I've been in a wheelchair for almost 10 years. It'll be my 10th anniversary next March. I'm gonna have a cake and I'll probably have a cry. But even before that, I used other mobility aids. I started off with a walking stick, then I moved to a walking frame, then I moved to a manual wheelchair, then I moved to a power wheelchair, and then I moved to a customized power wheelchair, and then I moved to an even more customized power wheelchair. But along that journey, I've seen the same kind of concerns and opinions crop up. And I think they're important to discuss, especially for people who might be starting out with using mobility aids and might be coming across some of these opinions and assumptions from the people around them. So I started using a walking stick when I was 20. I was using it on and off. I had become very ill that year and had kind of recovered a little bit, but I needed a walking stick. A lot of people thought that it was just kind of part of a vibe I was going for because I had an interesting vibe and the stick just fit right in. But no, I needed it. I needed it on and off. And then I needed a walking frame because the stick just wasn't holding me up anymore and my legs weren't holding me up anymore. So I had to go on to a walking frame and I started using that when I was 21. I think near the end of, 21 and a half, I started using a walking frame. And it was one of the ones on wheels that you'd push along. And I worked really hard to stay on that. I was living in a little flat by myself and we put in ramps and I used that frame every day. I walked around my house every day, even on the days when I was dragging my feet. And then I was in hospital and I went through a lot of crap, which I'll talk about sometime when I can process the trauma well enough. But I ended up in a wheelchair. And I had a lot of people concerned that giving in to using a wheelchair meant that I was giving up. That, oh no, if she uses a wheelchair then she won't be pushing herself to do things on her own and she'll just be letting this piece of equipment do it for her. No, you can't let yourself use a wheelchair. Don't let yourself. Just keep pushing forward. But in my situation, there was no such thing as letting myself use a wheelchair. My legs had stopped working. If you've ever seen like a baby giraffe take its first steps, that's how my legs were. Just wobbly, and they would not hold me up for the life of me. The people who were making these comments didn't see that struggle. They just saw a young person who had previously been walking and was now needing to use a wheelchair. And their concern was that I was giving in and that I would no longer be pushing myself harder and further to keep walking. But there's something about disability where for some people technology makes life easier. For other people technology makes life possible. And in my case, in the case of many other disabled people, without that technology we can't actually function. It's not a matter of just going, well, this makes it easier to function. It's that we can't function if we don't have that. And so when I was in this manual wheelchair and then we started making moves towards a power wheelchair, the comments started again. No, you've got to hold on to your independence. You've got to keep working at pushing yourself. No, hold on to your physical capabilities and don't let yourself rely on a power wheelchair. There was no option for me to hold on to my physical capabilities because they were being wrenched out of my hands. There was no option for me to just keep pushing myself. With disability, it isn't a matter of willpower. It isn't that the bravest ones fight disability and win, and that the weak ones just give in and end up in wheelchairs. That's not the way it works. Disability does not give a shit if you have strong willpower. It does not care if you don't want to be in a wheelchair. You can't fight that. And I think a big thing with my situation was that it's chronic illness. It's not that I was in a car accident and I ended up in a wheelchair. It's the long, slow period of chronic illness and deterioration. And so people kept thinking, no, I've known other people with chronic illness and they didn't end up in a wheelchair. And it must be because they worked harder. it must be because they had the willpower and they weren't going to let themselves be disabled. So with these two people with chronic illness, and if one could fight disability and not end up disabled, then that other person must just be giving in. They must just be quitting the fight. Bull. That is a load of bull. That's a load of poppycock. Disability and illness don't care. Don't care. It's like when they say that people won the fight against certain illnesses because they were strong. Every single person who fights illness is strong. And it's not just that you get healed or you get through it because you're strong. It's not a matter of willpower. And when I was in my manual wheelchair and preparing for a power wheelchair, people were very concerned that I was no longer going to be trying, that I was going to be losing something by giving in. And I had to explain to them, when I'm in a manual wheelchair, I have to stay in bed until somebody can come and lift me into my wheelchair. And then they push me to the toilet because I cannot push myself because my arms are too tired. Then I'm lifted onto the toilet. And then when I'm finished using the toilet, that person comes in, lifts me back into my wheelchair, wheels me back to bed, and puts me in my bed. With a power wheelchair, I get up out of bed myself. I zoom to the toilet myself. I transfer onto the toilet myself. I transfer off the toilet myself. I zoom back and I don't go to bed. I go to the couch by myself. I zoom around my kitchen by myself. I make my lunch myself. I go into the yard myself. How is that a loss? Those things are things that I cannot do in a manual wheelchair, but I can do them in a power wheelchair. It's like if people are afraid of you relying on technology and yet they don't have anything against using a car. They don't have anything against going, well, I could, walk for half an hour to get to that spot, but I could also drive there in 5 minutes. So I'm going to drive. How is that any different? Aren't you just relying on technology to do the work for you? Shouldn't you be pushing forward and maintaining all of that stuff yourself? With disability and chronic illness, it isn't a choice. I don't get to just power through and use my just pure willpower to avoid using technology. And when people have thought that I was giving in by using more and more detailed and customized equipment, I am living such a more full life now in my power wheelchair than I was in my manual. I live in my own flat, which was never an option with my manual wheelchair. Technology's opened up the world for me. It's like saying to somebody with hearing loss, don't wear hearing aids, just focus more. Just listen harder. Don't wear glasses, just squint. Just squint and get your vision back. It doesn't work. It's not about willpower. It's not about focus. Sometimes things in your body just don't work and you need help. Simple as that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. And if you are giving in to a piece of equipment, you are not giving up. What you are doing is opening your life up to so many other options. So if you're at a stage where you are considering getting in a piece of equipment, if you're realizing that walking is just taking too much out of you and you might need a walking frame or a wheelchair, and you're coming across things like this, get people to watch this video. Tell them, I'm not giving in. I'm opening my life up to so many more possibilities that I could not do on my own. So that's my little word of wisdom for you. Many, many words. Many, many words of wisdom for you. That giving up, no. Getting equipment is not giving up. Getting equipment that you need is opening your life up to so many other things that maybe you can't achieve on your own, and there is no shame in that. Alright. That's all from me for this one. Bless.